Hi, I'm Oskar Shirlev and you're watching news from Kazakhstan. Here are the headlines. Golos Respubliki newspaper will now be available in an electronic format due to the ban of the publication. The management of the outlet recalled the details of the Wednesday's visit of bailiffs. The attorney of Budagat, Vladislav Chelok-Serikh-Sarsenov, left the courtroom. The hearings will continue without the defendant and with one attorney only. The country is continuing to celebrate the first President Day that is yet to come. The fragments of the military Mi-8 helicopter, which disappeared 6 days ago, were discovered in Almaty region. It crashed in the area of the 16th Railroad Junction near Irgayti village. The tail section of the chopper was the only thing that remained intact. All 8 people who were on board died and their bodies were discovered. The press service of the Regional Department of Emergencies reported that the works at the location of the accident will continue over the night. Mi-8s usually have the so-called black boxes. However, an hour before the discovery of the fragments, Transportation Prosecution reported that this particular chopper didn't have the emergency radio beacon, and that was the reason why it took so long to find it. Now the State Department wants to inspect all the helicopters in the country.
The Transport Prosecutor's Office, together with the relevant authority, has been delegated by the State Prosecutor to inspect the helicopter fleet of the country for the compliance with the law and air safety control in particular. On November 24th, an Mi-8 helicopter took off for the oil pipeline inspection in the Almaty region. The communication with the chopper was lost in 4 hours. A criminal case was initiated regarding the mission aircraft, with the investigation considering a human factor and equipment failure as possible causes of the accident. Senator Mukhtar Altanbayev says that it is likely the helicopter crashed due to poor weather conditions. The former Minister of Air Defense has extensive flight experience and even survived a chopper crash a few years ago. Altanbayev says that technically a helicopter is a more complex aircraft than a plane, and strong winds can actually prevent it from moving forward. The former pilot also expresses serious concerns about the craft maintenance quality in Kazakhstan and neighboring Russia.
The heads and employees of Golos Respubliki and Vzglyad newspapers made several statements on Thursday over the shutdown. To recap, on Wednesday, the bailiffs broke into the office of Golos Respubliki and conducted a search. At the same time, 99 copies of the last publication of Nevzglyad newspaper were seized. More details next.
On Thursday, the staff of the newspaper Golos Respubliki attempted to find out what the uninvited guests actually wanted from them the day before. I still cannot figure out what they were searching for and why, because they did not explain anything. They searched through all the newspaper files and offices. According to the newspaper, reporters, bailiffs acted unlawfully, never even presenting their IDs to begin with. It appears they just broke into newspaper's office, completely ignoring the mostly female staff, who still tried to resist the attack, which in turn sparked a conflict. Reporters now say that the men who entered their office hardly looked like bailiffs at all. Supposedly they were bailiffs, but nobody knew for sure. They looked like real criminals, judging by their appearance. The most surprising was the sudden presence of the alleged search witnesses. According to law, only unrelated strangers could be called witnesses in similar situations. But on Wednesday night, they clearly acted as a team, breaking into the office together with bailiffs. The people who were trying to break in were actually witnesses, as we later found out. Could you imagine real search witnesses doing that? For now, reporters share their own view on the current situation with independent media in the country. All of this is done because they do not want us to cover the events in Zhanaozen. Apparently, it is a major pain for them. Still, journalists say that what doesn't kill them makes them stronger, and that is exactly why Golos Respubliki intends to stay strong in the newspaper business.
The preliminary hearing over the recognition of Alga unregistered party as extremist was held at Almala District Court of Almaty. It is not yet clear who will be the defendant. The sides failed to determine the matter. The next hearing is scheduled for December 5th.
The dispute between the parties erupted during the first session, the so-called additional consultation by Judge Mukhtar Amirov. The prosecutors failed to explain to the invited lawyers who will be considered the defendant on the case. After all, the party is not officially registered. The organizing committee was terminated a week ago, while the state prosecutor ignores all requests to legalize the political alliance. On Thursday, neither the prosecutor nor the court were able to clearly explain and identify the defendant in the case. When the defense, represented by our lawyers, clearly requested prosecutors to specify who is the defendant, they refer to an article which is absolutely irrelevant for this particular situation.
The activists of the Socialist Resistance of Kazakhstan have organized a march to the Russian diplomatic mission, demanding to liberate their Russian colleagues. Amid the action, experts discussed the work quality of NGOs and their number. Take a look at our next report.
We represent Kazakhstan's socialist movement, and we want to submit our appeal against repressions of the left-wing activists in Russia. The Socialist Resistance activists decided to express solidarity to the Russian left-wing movement by drafting an appeal to the Consul General of the Russian Federation, asking for the release of protesters arrested in Moscow during rallies. At the same time, socialists say that the current situation in Kazakhstan is hardly any better. The situation in Kazakhstan is very similar to what is going on in Russia, as we also suffer repressions and face growing numbers of political prisoners. The Policy Decisions Club session featured a discussion on civic engagement and efficiency of non-government sector campaigns. The Internet Association representative Shavkat Sabirov expressed an opinion that public attempts to evoke a response from the government should have a more constructive nature. Social activists should use every constructive opportunity to get their point across to the government, instead of holding protest rallies and pickets. And Ludwig Janova, responsible for the NGO sector at the Domestic Policy Department of the Almaty administration, was the official government representative at the club session. Her speech was yet another routine report on the number of non-government organizations in Kazakhstan, amounting to 5,000. However, no information was provided on their efficiency. I do not see any substantial drawbacks in NGOs' performance, other than the lack of public awareness on their activities. Curiously, NGO representatives were ready to admit more operational flaws than government officials. This resulted in a mutual consent to attempt introducing reforms to the third sector by concentrating on public interest protection rather than receiving international grants. It still remains to be seen whether such reforms are possible in the current political climate.
More than 300 workers of metallurgy company are on the verge of being temporarily sacked in Pavlodar. Casting company is intended to send workers for 4 months of unpaid vacation. Workers of the enterprise already received notifications over the possible job cuts.
Everyone has mortgage to pay, wages had dropped, and nobody knows what to do now, especially at my age. I cannot just work for $200 a month because it is not enough to feed my family. Company management did not even bother to explain anything to its employees or reporters. The staff was informed about the reasons for mass layoffs by the officials, who said the demand for the company's products has dropped recently, forcing the company to take drastic measures. Labor inspectors are currently monitoring the downsizing process. The State Labor Inspection is running an audit here based on the order of the prosecutor's office to oversee the company's compliance with the labor code regulations on termination of contracts and layoffs. Our job is to oversee the procedure.
Passion, emotions and scandals. This is quite appropriate description of Arkan massacre case. On Thursday, defendant Chelakh yet again was brought to court while his main defender, lawyer Serik Sarsenov, left the courtroom due to high tension. Moreover, he left Taldykargan. The reasons of the demarche in the next report.
The trial of Vladislav Chelakh entered its 8th day on Wednesday, and the emotional build-up seems to only get stronger with each hearing. Only the defendant keeps calm and still refuses to testify in court. Trial participants insisted on Chelakh's presence during the session, as one of the featured witnesses was the deputy head of Alakol Regional Department of Internal Affairs, Rustem Begbaev, who accepted the defendant's admission of guilt. Serik Sarsenov is convinced that Chelakh was compelled into false testimony through physical assault or other means, while Begbaev claims quite the opposite. He willingly asked for a pen and paper and wrote an admission of guilt with witness of the attorney without even leaving the room. Another prosecution witness, the fire and explosive research expert Serik Karsabayev, claimed there were no signs of a blast at Arkan outpost. Along with the repeatedly rejected defense petitions and selective evidence footage demonstration, this provoked Chelakh's lawyer to challenge the judge. Now this is total lawlessness. I cannot stay quiet any longer, so I am recusing the judge. This was already the second recusal motion against the judge Yerbol Akhmedjanov, who decided to retain his judicial power again. The defense petitions lack legal grounds, as the attorney was provided with ample time and opportunity to examine and copy case files during the pre-trial investigation. I cannot participate in today's session because I am not feeling well. I need to see a doctor. I have a headache and blood pressure. Your Honor, I request placing this on record. As a defense lawyer, Sarsenov infringes on judicial proceedings by attempting to leave the courtroom without authorization. Luckily, the verbal crossfire was halted by the lunch break. Later on, it appeared that Sarsenov did leave to Almaty to undergo a course of treatment. In my opinion, all three public prosecutors should be charged with negligence. From now on, the second defense lawyer, Serik Estiarov, who does have access to classified files, will be representing Vladislav Chela. Despite the defendant's objections, the court continued to study the on-site inspection reports. Your Honor, I have been notified that my lawyer left Aldekargan and will be back in a few days. I object continuing the trial without Sarsenov. He has been maintaining the line of defense since the pre-trial investigation, while lawyer Estiarov is not familiar with all case files. The court holds that the trial will continue without Sarsenov. Please convoy the defendant back to his cell. Chelak's defense party is convinced that closing this notorious case without going into too much detail would be to the best interest of the judge and public prosecutors. Meanwhile, the trial seems to be hardest on the families of the killed border guards, who are compelled to go through the tragic events again and again, while witnessing numerous scandals in court.
The freed from slavery Shymkent residents from Moscow are revealing new facts. 2 children of the worker from Galyanova store who were assumed to be kidnapped returned back to Kazakhstan. Police were searching for them for several weeks in vain. The whereabouts of their mother is still unknown. To recap, over a month ago in Moscow, the volunteers and journalists freed women and children from slavery. Criminal case was instigated against the owners of the store, also Shymkent natives, but later the case was terminated. Most of the victims already returned back to Kazakhstan and started to change their testimonies in favor of the slave owner. The new versions in the next report.
The children who were believed to have been kidnapped returned to their hometown of Shymkent 2 weeks ago. A 14-year-old Asel is holding her little brother Amir tightly by the hand. Following a big scandal in Galyanova, police and Moscow volunteers were also looking for their mother, Saltanat Kyrgyzbaeva. According to the collected information, she also worked at the infamous store featured so prominently in the alleged slavery case. My mom and dad are now in Moscow working while we came here with my aunt, Rabiga. Jansulu Itanbekova, the store owner, says that all rumors regarding kidnapping of children are spread by ill-wishers, while conditions for kids when they were in Moscow were excellent. On top of that, she says that both children are in fact her relatives. They say we killed or sold them, but they are practically our relatives, and their parents work in Moscow. The kids now live with their grandmother, as Aselia wanted to take care of Amir, and that is why her mother took her to Moscow. Now, with all these problems, I had to send her back to Kazakhstan. 25-year-old Raskulka Kozova says that she lost a well-paid job due to all the fuss with the store that supposedly employed slave labor. The girl worked in the grocery section and recently became unemployed. Kozova says she ignored provocation and refused to file a claim against her employers. They told me to file a claim and promised good money for this. Leila, Tanya, and volunteer Alexei asked me to join others in filing a claim against my employers, saying they would buy a car for me in Kazakhstan. Several people online now say that Saltanat Kyrgyzbaeva has been working for Jansulu Istanbekova for over 17 years and knows all about her shady past. Perhaps this is why the freed women believe Saltanat was actually killed. The store owner's couple deny the information and say that Saltanat will arrive in Shymkent in 2 weeks to tell reporters what really happened to her.
A family from Astana spent 24 hours on 40-meter-high tower. They threatened to commit suicide, but after long persuasion, they went down. 52-year-old Bagjan Ayazbekova and her relatives decided to show their discontent with the fact that one of the sons of Bagjan is in jail for 2 years based on unjust verdict, as she claims.
The people above were spotted almost immediately. They climbed the viewing platform of the smoke-deflecting pipe located on the premises of the First City Hospital. Rescue workers, medical specialists, and police have all arrived at site shortly. They, however, failed to reason Barjan Ayazbekova, her son, and daughter-in-law to come down. In total, they spent around 24 hours on the platform, without food, covering themselves against strong winds with blankets. The situation was resolved only after Zhumajan Zhukenov, the head of the counseling office of the ruling party Nuratan, arrived on the site. The official publicly promised the woman that her son's case will be reconsidered. Azamat Ayazbekov was sentenced to 9 years for extortion as part of the organized criminal group. He has already served 2 years of his sentence, but his mother is certain that he is innocent, and she's willing to sacrifice her life to prove it. I warned them against lying to me. I came down only because of the promise, and if he does not keep it, I have underage kids, and I am going to jump off a building with them. This time I will not be asking anybody for anything. I will just do it.
Kazakhstan is the recognized leader in traffic accidents. The country long ago surpassed the EU states in the number of accidents per capita. Experts are concerned with the national scale of the problem. However, the state has no solution so far. Details next.
Aklima Mustafina knows what it's like to be hit by a car. After getting in an accident with a car driven by a beginner, she barely escaped becoming a cripple for life. Ever since, Aklima believes that most accidents are the result of corruption within the department issuing driver's licenses. There are many drivers who simply bought their licenses. I know many people who bought them without actually taking driving classes. I believe it isn't right. In the meantime, the police has its own perspective on the issue of traffic accidents. I am convinced that if we step up responsibility in the administrative law, it will at least discipline car owners. A professor at the Asia-Pacific University approached the problem in a scientific way. He gathered facts and wrote a thesis based on traffic problems in Kazakhstan. According to World Health Organization in Europe, Kazakhstan has the highest death rate related to traffic accidents, despite the fact that the country has the least vehicles per capita. Why is that? For a small amount of cars on the roads, the death rate in traffic accidents is higher in Kazakhstan than that of the entire Europe. Almaty chief traumatologist Anatoly Chuchula also shares his rather serious statistics. In the last 9 months, we have received 846 patients. 120 of them were hospitalized and 8 died within 24 hours. Quite often, the law enforcement officials are causing traffic accidents themselves, yet the Department of Internal Affairs representatives tend to never mention such facts. Haven't you just agreed to an interview? No, I did not realize it will be an actual interview. We have no right to give interviews. We can answer any questions only with the approval from our leadership. Almat Salgara once worked for the president's administration, yet now he promotes special equipment for cars. 4 years ago, he miraculously survived a car accident himself and later invented a device which could help to prevent traffic accidents. The invention, however, has not found business success so far. Should we endorse these two systems, it is not going to benefit the Customs and Traffic Police Department, as they would simply start losing money. They work in a very corrupted system, which almost becomes a sector of national economy on its own. It almost seems like they are forced to meet the plan on raising specific amounts of money. In the meantime, according to statistics, 12 people in Kazakhstan die in car accidents every single day, making a total of 4,500 deaths per year. It is a crucial number considering the country's population of 16 million.
The late president of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, offered billions of dollars to Nursultan Nazarbayev. These funds were to be used to store nuclear weapons on the territory of the country. This was brought up by Kassym-Jomart Tokayev on Thursday. Former Prime Minister of Kazakhstan and the current Director General of UN office in Geneva made this information public in Astana.
In early 1992, the Foreign Ministry received a letter through diplomatic channels sent by Muammar Gaddafi to Nursultan Nazarbayev. The Libyan leader offered the president of Kazakhstan to keep nuclear arsenals on the territory of our country, calling it the first Muslim nuclear bomb, and promising millions for the effort. Nazarbayev, however, had the foresight to reject the money, says Tokayev. He adds that the important letter should be published for younger generations to better understand the dynamics of this complex era and appreciate the wise strategy of the president. Tokayev knows of more historic episodes but prefers not to mention them for now. He finished his speech by saying that the world has yet to see an alternative to Nazarbayev in regards to his experience and strong will. Plenty more flattering words were addressed to the incumbent president of Kazakhstan during the readings, which gathered together scholars from 50 40 countries across the globe.
The first President Day was already celebrated by the students of Almaty universities. More than 150 artists have praised the incumbent president in the Palace of Students. The favorite songs of Nazarbayev were performed as well. Next report shows how it all looked.
We dedicate this event to the first President's Day. We want our students to see the President as a role model and follow his path. Today we will listen only to the President's favorite songs or songs dedicated to him.
This is all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay well.